Ladies and gentlemen, yes, it is 7 p.m. Monday. New episode of 3beards of Wrestling. Please tune in. We have an amazing guest tonight. So sit back, grab your popcorn, get ready for some laughs. The show is about to start now.
What is up, fellas?
What's going on, everybody?
What's happening?
Our guest will be with us here shortly.
Yes, I'm excited. You better be excited.
So just hang tight with us while we wait on him. But we can take care of business in the first place.
I want to know if you're excited. Tell me if you're excited.
I was like, what the hell are you saying at first? I was like, what are you whispering?
You're excited.
I'm excited.
This coming week, CCW returns to Lebanon for our annual Black Friday show with the guests ECW Super Crazy, Pitbull Gary Wolf, ECW Bill Alfonso, and our guest tonight on the podcast, Michael Tarver.
Woo!
And then we go to Saturday night. Valor Pro Wrestling returns to Vonnie B. Grind's gym. All those guys that I announced will be there Saturday too. There is a seminar with Super Crazy and Kevin Kelly. Limited spots are available. I think there's only a couple spots left. So check it out.
And
I didn't get the other ones uploaded, but I guess before this one. December 1st, that's Sunday. Seven Mountains will return to Mr. Stack's gym. I don't know the time. I think it's 4 or 5, I believe. So very big weekend ahead of us.
Super big
and
weekend.
then our Brian's 3 Legacies schedule. All dates are there. That's a lot of them.
Yeah.
Especially just stay at the Ville Court. Just stay at the Ville Court. You will not miss it.
Just pop a 10 up.
Yeah, Ville Court.
Sure.
So our guest is now on. Everyone, please welcome Michael Tarver.
Yo, what's going on?
What is going on, sir?
Hey, what's going on? How you guys doing? Can you hear
Good.
me?
How are you?
Pretty good. You see that he got the beard going too. So he's honorary. He's honorary. He's already in. He's got the beard going. Yeah, so that's fantastic. That is
Yeah.
Happy Thanksgiving, David.
Welcome in, baby.
Yeah.
All right.
Hey, Jim.
Let's jump in with Mr. Tarver here.
It's Monster Tarver, first of all. You see his name. It's Monster Tarver. So get it right.
Yeah.
Stop being a heathen.
Yeah, there's a reason for that.
Yeah, exactly. Man is a monster, damn it. He has earned that title. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
How y'all doing, man?
Good. How are you?
We're good. I'm good.
Good. I'm blessed.
It's good to be blessed.
That's good.
It's good to be blessed.
Big.
Well, thank you for coming on and doing the podcast with us knuckleheads. And you'll see. Well, you'll see me this weekend at least. I don't know about these two guys, but
I'm retired, sir. I can't be there. So why would you even see? That's hateful. That right there. See, that's hateful. That you just bring the illustrious guests on and then you just rub it in my face. I can't see it. It's okay. That's all right. It's cool.
It happens.
I'm not crying.
So, Mr. Carver.
Yes, sir.
Let's just jump right into you. So, normally when we have guests on here, we kind of start from the beginning. So, where did your wrestling career start?
Akron, Ohio, 20 years ago. Akron, Ohio. Yeah, I had my first ever match on a Tuesday night at a club called the Shamrock Nightclub in Barberton, Ohio, which is like a kind of a, if you will, suburb of Akron, Ohio. And my first day in the business, I had my first ever match.
Oh wow!
Which is that's a big no-no, but that's how my career is going.
So hey, you know what? Throw him out there. He be fun.
Mm-hmm. Well, it was on local access television up in Akron. I had seen an indie company called I can't remember now. UCW, and I saw them on television, and I was still wrapping up what was left of my football career, trying to go pro. It never worked out, and I saw their champion on television, and he was a little guy. He was wearing a mask, had a mask gimmick, and I'm thinking to myself, I would kill this guy. Like, what? And I was always a fan of wrestling, so I just said, you know what? All right, I just got a divorce. I was like, you know what? I need something new to do. So called the number, went down to the gym, and it was a bar. Actually, went to the bar. I walked in, and I remember I was stunned when I saw the wrestlers in the ring going over their matches, and it just for some reason. I'm never intimidated by anything, but it kind of like, I was like, whoa, wait a minute. This is different from, wait a minute. I've been watching wrestling my whole life, but actually seeing it behind the scenes for the first time, like this, it kind of stopped me in my tracks a little bit. I'm like, wait, I don't know if I could do that. So I get in the ring, and the promoter, John Potok was his name. John Potok, good old John. He walks up to me, shakes my hand. He's like, you are a big guy. I'm like, yeah, I used to play football, blah, 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 blah. He's like, get in the ring. So I get in the ring, and then he tells me to take a back bump. So I'm like, what is a back bump?
Oh, no.
Imagine not knowing the answer to that question, right?
Oh, no.
Yeah. So they had a couple of guys show me, so I just imitate them and hit my head on the back of the mat. And they're like, no, you got to tuck your chin. I'm like, what do you mean tuck my chin? I didn't know, Right. So they showed me, so I took a back bump. It was the worst back bump ever. So all right, do a flip bump or a front bump or whatever, depending on where you are, what you call it. So I'm like, what is that?
So it was like, oh, you got a concussion. Now flip yourself. Go ahead.
Yeah. Basically, that was the first of many. So someone showed it to me, so I jumped up as high as I could and tried to flip, almost landed on my head, and I didn't get it. So, but he saw the athleticism, and one of the guys that were there, small, his name was Eddie Insane. He was about half my size. He was like 5'8", something like that, half my size. Great guy though. He's a heck of a worker. Been working for a long time, and I remember I had on an NWO Wolfpack T-shirt and some Adidas sweatpants. Oh, that was a supermarket. And so John was like, put you in the ring tonight. Think you can do it? I said, yeah, I would love. Yeah, of course. I've been watching Bill Goldberg for the last 3 years. Of course. So I get in the ring. We call the match, and I ask if I can have offense. First of all, I ask if I can have offense. Secondly, I ask if I can have a bunch of offense. And that offense was all of Bill Goldberg's and Brock Lesnar's moves. I promise you, I swear, this is a true story. I remember the guy looked at me and he said, no.
Absolutely not.
Yeah, I was like, all right. And yeah. So I ended up getting squashed in like 3 minutes, basically. And it went the way it was supposed to go, other than the fact that I shouldn't have seen the inside of a ring for another year. But I was just so excited about it that I came back every Tuesday and started training. So they started training me literally the week later. The guy that squashed me became my first trainer. And he started training me every Tuesday before every show. So I would train for like 2 hours. It was like about 5 or 6 of us, or whatever. And I was picking it up really fast. I was really, connecting with the sport of it, and the art of it. And it just turned into a thing where every week I'd have a match. I would get squashed, but I would, do my training and learn something new. And a couple of guys ended up being my brothers. They ended up being my trainers and finishing out my training. I remember one of his name is Lamont Williams. I think it's Lou Sterrett is his name. He has a company called DFW All Pro in Texas. And he would teach me how to lock up before the matches. We literally just practice locking up before we both go out. Yeah, but I picked it up pretty fast for the first year. This is 2004, and then then they started taking me all over the Ohio Valley area, like, Western PA, you guys know, West Virginia, Michigan, things like that, and Kentucky, and all over Ohio. And I just started getting booked. I was a big guy. I was athletic, and I could talk because I come from a music background, so I was comfortable on the mic. And the rest is history.
Okay, first of all, I want to say you wrestled in Kentucky, and I'm so sorry because I know the Kentucky area, and they got some strong trees there. So
Strong trees.
God bless you.
Yeah, the wrestling in Ohio ain't that different. It's probably better
really
now.
not. It's really not. I'm currently living in Ohio, so yeah.
What part are you in?
Not many trees. I'm in Cincinnati. So,
oh, wow. Okay. Well, Cincinnati's not the worst part.
No, it's not the worst part. Not the worst part. But I do travel to Akron quite often. And
Oh, wow.
So combined, it's 5T. That's awesome.
Yeah, Akron is. Yeah, it's about as interesting as a cardboard box.
Yeah.
It's nothing interesting in Akron. Crazy. Akron is pretty lame, but it's home.
Yeah, you got Michael Tarver showing up on day one. They're like, "All right, can you do this?" He's like, "Nope." They're like, "Sounds great. You're on. You're on. Let's go."
This is before Michael Tarver years before Michael Tarver was even born and died. But yeah, my first wrestling name was the Upgrade. That was my first wrestling name, the Upgrade. Yeah, great. Okay. And I would come to the ring doing all of Lil Jon and Eastside Boys, all of his ad libs, like yelling out, what? And I would wear camouflage. Yeah, it was interesting. I remember I got my first pair of wrestling trunks, my first pair of boots. It was crazy.
Did you think after that first day, like just looking at where you've been and everything you've been, like man, I survived day one. Like, holy crap!
Day one is nothing compared to what happened when I actually got to reach the goal. Like a lot of wrestlers, a lot of workers, a lot of young talent. They want to make it big and they want to sign that contract somewhere until they actually get there and see it's real and see what it's like. But I remember after that first match, I remember laying in bed and I couldn't sleep the whole night. All I could see was that ring. I was hooked. I was addicted to it, and I fell in love. Like it was love at first sight. And I watched wrestling my entire life, and yeah, I just never thought I would ever actually do it. And so when I go to shows now and I see the passion, a lot of the younger guys, or guys who've been doing indies for a long time who haven't traveled or whatever, like I get it. I see where they're coming from. I see what they're missing as far as seeing places and seeing things they haven't seen, but I can see where they are. Like I get why they're so passionate about it, and I get it.
That's awesome. So what was that transition like from being in the indies and kind of working your way up and finally here we are on the big stage? What was that like, dealing with that?
It was everything about my career. So to be honest, I don't really do wrestling podcasts anymore, interviews anymore. So this is special. Not just, whatever, but this is special. My wrestling career has just been one bad story after another. So my transition from the indies to WWE was dramatic, of course. And I was working in Cleveland, and it was a pretty big scene that was growing in Cleveland. It's always been an indie scene in Cleveland, but it's pretty big now. Like they got one big company, AIW is the name of the company. I was one of their first guys, that worked with them before I got signed. But, there was some controversy with another wrestler who blamed me for something I didn't actually do, but I just ended up taking the blame for it and, trying to talk to the person and all of that. But he decided to go on a victim tour and used me to make a name for himself until I got my contract. And that's how I left the indies, was that. And I never forget, how, when someone, I don't know how it is now, but someone gets a contract, gets a shot or whatever, they have their last match, and then they have the kind of the appreciation thing where they do the promo or whatever. And so I had my last match for AIW in Cleveland in 2008, and I remember going into the locker room, and it was all of the Cleveland guys who, they were all friends with the kid who, said created the story, and I literally had my contract folded up in my back pocket. This is a true story, and I'm walking around shaking everybody's hands. I even go up to the kid because he and I had seen each other at a show in Western PA, and I think it was like an NWA branch or something. But we had seen each other at a show in Western PA. We talked, about the whole thing, but he always neglected to leave that part out. Yeah. And yeah, he's a bit of a liar, but God bless him. I'm in the locker room shaking hands with everyone, and I remember one of the guys looks up at me and says, "Hey, man, I heard about this whole WWE thing." This is when I was backstage and I had my tryout, whatever. And news travels fast. You know how that goes. And this is also before Facebook and Instagram and Twitter, and I think YouTube was just starting to become a thing. And MySpace was actually kind of still a thing.
Oh my God!
And so this was like 07. Yeah. Yeah, like a world without Instagram. Like, what? I remember it.
People are like MySpace are like, oh shit.
Yeah, right. This is 07. This is like MySpace time, basically. And so we had this message board, like in a kind of Ohio Valley area. It was indiemessageboard.com was the actual message board, and people would go on, and that's where you would get your news about local wrestling, and that's where it broke that I was backstage. And so I'm at this AIW show, and they're like, "Hey, man, I heard you or got signed with WWE. That's got to be a lie, right? That's not true." So I was like, "Well, yeah, I mean, I guess we'll find out, right?" So I just shook their hands, and I had the contract in my back pocket. And I go out in the middle of the show and do my goodbye speech, where I pull the contract out of my back pocket and show it to everybody. And then I called the kid out of the locker room, and everyone thought that I was going to like shoot on him, for revenge, because he did a whole lot. He did way too much. Instead, I spent about 15 minutes giving him props and called for the crowd to give him a standing ovation. He never seemed to mention that either. So the crowd gives him a standing ovation. And, I continue, and then I'm hugging people afterwards. People are crying, whatever, because I was kind of an underdog. And the way I got that contract was I walked into a SmackDown taping unannounced, unbooked. They didn't know who I was, didn't know I was coming. I just walked in to the arena in Rochester, New York, and got a tryout and got offered a contract. It'll never happen again, but that's how my WWE career started.
Oh wow!
Yeah.
So going in day one, them trying to figure out how to do a back bump and a flip bump to fast forward, and you're just like walking in, you're like went for this trial, and they're like, yeah, you like almost like you start Monday if that's cool. Like,
well, yeah. Oh. So like the way it happened was this was 07. This was December of 07, and it was a friend of mine from Pennsylvania, John McChesney is his name. He's a big PA guy, Western PA guy, and he was booked to be an extra, and he had told me that they needed extras for, if I remember correctly, it was supposed to be a segment between JBL and Jericho, and they needed big guys for extras. And he was like, "You should go." I'm like, "Yeah, how do I do that? Like, how do I do that?" So, and this is at the time where people were starting to get booked as extras, whatever. Like I remember Johnny Gargano, he was getting booked. I worked with him in Cleveland, before we both got signed, but I used to know him back in the AIW days. A few guys. What's the guy's name from the War Raiders? Eric, I think is his name. Raymond Rose's name. We used to work together in Cleveland. Shane Taylor, we used to work together in Cleveland. But so I'm like, all right. So I just get in the car with a good friend of mine, and we drive up to New York. And on the way there, I happened to run into Sterling James Keenan. What is his name now? Corey Graves. I run into Corey Graves, and we knew each other from the Indies. And he's like, "Yo, all right, you get booked." I said, "Well, I just came." He said, "All right, just come in. Don't make noise. I'll tell you where to go." So he basically just kind of guided me around and told me where to go. There was a couple of people there that day that ended up on television. Colin Delaney was there. He got signed that day. So I do my tryout, and I remember I'm standing outside the ring, And Jamie Noble walks up to me and he's like, "You get in the ring," because that's exactly how it sounds in real life.
Yep.
So give me a match, So I get in the ring and have a 5-minute impromptu match, which is what they do as standard. That's which I learned. That's what they do with the extras if they want to look at somebody. And I remember all of the talent were sitting in the arena. This is pre-show, which I learned that's how it works. And in particular, I remember seeing I remember seeing Edge and Mark Henry, because it was Mark Henry that came up and talked to me later that night. And they were heckling me. So I started healing out on them. And apparently they were like, "Whoa, okay, I'm just doing what I thought I was supposed to do. I'm only 4 years in at the time, still green, but I had worked, made some rounds and worked with some people. But so, I get out the ring and it's freezing cold. And I remember one of the talent relations guys, Mark Cronos, his name, he pulls me, he taps on the shoulder, says, "Johnny wants to meet you." I'm like, "Johnny?" And they're looking at me like, "Johnny?" I'm like, "Who's Johnny?" Like, "Did you know who Johnny is?" So I'm like, "Oh, Johnny? Okay." I'm gonna find out, obviously, it's John Laurinaitis. So I go to meet him and they take me down this long corridor and he's sitting in an office. It was almost like I was getting in trouble with the principal. So I'm sitting in a chair. Yeah, and I see him sitting, the door's cracked and he's sitting in a small office and he's on the phone. So talent relations guy said, just wait here. So I'm waiting. And mind you, it's probably 30 degrees. This is in Rochester, New York. All of the doors are open in the arena, freezing cold. And I look up to my left to Batista walking down the hallway. So I freak out and I'm like, "Oh, crap." So I catch my breath. I jump up, stop him in his tracks, shake his hand, and introduce myself. And he's like, "Oh, okay, kid. Hey, nice to meet you." So I sit down. He goes in, talks to Johnny, comes back out again. "So you're around, kid?" I'm like, I'm flipping like, "I just met Batista." Like I'm, what I'm saying? Like, what the? And we ended up becoming really cool. He actually helped me out a whole lot. That's a whole nother story. If that would have come to fruition, my career would have went a whole different path. But so I'm sitting there like flipping out over meeting Batista, and then the next person comes to walk down the hallway. I look up, it's Vince McMahon himself. So I stand up, dust myself off, stop in his track, shake his hand, introduce myself. And he goes, "Oh, okay, kid, nice to meet you." This is a true story, exactly how it went. And he goes in, talks to Johnny, comes back out. "So you're around, kid." I'm like, "Okay." And then now I'm hyperventilating, can't catch my breath. Like, what? I just met freaking Vince McMahon. Like I've seen him on TV my whole life. And then the third person comes down the hallway. The last person is the freaking Undertaker.
Oh,
so I'm dead. Yeah. So I stand up and
Yeah.
stop him dead in his tracks. Did exactly, "How you doing, sir? My name is," told him my real name and all blah, blah, blah. And he's like, "Okay, kid." Goes in, talks to Johnny for a little bit, comes back up. "So you're around, kid?" I was like, "Yes, sir." And I'm like, what? It doesn't get any bigger than this. And Johnny calls me in the office. We sit down. He's like, "Hey, kid. Okay, you look good, kid. I can tell you're not on the gas, man. Tell me about your tattoos." I'm showing him my tattoos that I had at the time. And so he was telling me about some of the work I did in Philly for PWU. I don't know if you guys are familiar. So at the time, it was like '07 at the arena, CZW and PWU were running the arena, and Todd Gordon was running PWU. And this is like '07 or whatever. And it was a lot of the ex-ECW guys. And I had gotten booked, and Tuco Scorpio kind of helped me get booked there. And I ended up working a kind of a small little storyline with Sandman. And that was like the highlight of my indie career, basically, was, working with Sandman at the arena, And they knew about it. He knew about it. I'm like, what? Like, they really do homework. WWE knows who they're looking, who they're signing. So I'm like, what does that mean, that they were looking at me? Or does it like what in the world? You know what I'm saying? So he's like, "I want to send you to OVW. I want to send you to Kentucky." I'm like, "You want to send me where?" And OVW was freaking Disneyland.
Yeah.
So I'm like, "Yeah, sure. Yeah, let me think about it." Of course. So, I go out the office and go find my friend. His name was Drew. He was a referee. And we kind of find a little corner. We just hide. And he's like, "What happened?" I said, "Bro, they're sending me to OVW." And we both just kind of like started crying and just hugged, like, "Can't believe this is happening." And it was crazy. The crazy part about that is that I was homeless at the time. I was couch surfing. So, yeah, that's how it began.
Oh, wow.
Imagine just in this, like half-hour span. You're like your whole childhood's going past you and all this stuff. You're like you have no time to like let it like sink in and really like bite your teeth into it before the next person came in, and then the next one you're like, and then when you finally have a moment, you're like, what the hell just happened?
Yeah, basically, yeah.
That's
I had to like
crazy.
fight to catch my breath. I was like, like it was, it was crazy, man.
They're like, you okay, kid? You're like, no, I'm just having a heart attack. It's
I'm just having a heart attack. Yeah.
I'm dying slowly. It's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's good. Happens all the time.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I would know. I would know.
I got you.
But I mean, that's one of those things where you like go through like those people are going by you, and you're like, all right, I have a moment to either go like super fan kind of thing, or like humble myself and be just polite and on it, and stuff like that too. And you're like, but it's really hard in that moment to like find that balance real quick. That you got to like check yourself, like, all right, don't overdo it, but this is cool as shit.
Well, so that's the thing. So I was trained well. So one of the things that I definitely understood was locker room etiquette. Even though I wasn't a WWE talent, I wasn't, and I was a guest there. And even more a guest, I was uninvited guest. I wasn't booked. They didn't know who I was. So this is all God. Like this is nothing I did. This is 100% like ordained by God because I was not supposed to get signed, or I was supposed to get signed, obviously, but because I didn't get booked. But I knew that I couldn't act like a mark. I knew I couldn't do that. And I was trained very well on that. Don't act like a mark. If you're backstage, don't act like a mark. And even when I became, contracted talent, you don't do that. I would see extras and they would walk around, and you could tell who the extras were because they'd be overdressed and overly nervous and quiet. And I would never mess with them. A lot of the guys would mess with them. I wouldn't mess with them. But then the biggest mistake that they would make is they'd ask to take a picture with, one of the talent, one of their favorite. I'm like, and I would tell them, no, don't do that. Don't do that. I just said, whatever you do, don't ask to take pictures. Don't act like a mark. Don't do that. They're gonna bury you. You'll never come back. And but I was told that don't act like a mark. Whatever you do, don't act like a mark. Act like you belong there. So when they when they walked in, I just stood up, stopped them right in their tracks, and just shook their and gave them a firm handshake. Which I learned. Some people you can give a firm handshake, some people you can't. But I learned, that's what they respect. In particular, the legends, and some legends are different than others. Some are quite petty, but yeah, they respect that. If you just stand up, eye to eye, nose to nose, shake their hand, they respect it. Some will backstab you, some won't, but they respect you.
Who was somebody you would say like during your time with in WWE and stuff like that? So like somebody that you like felt like you gravitated towards or really like clicked with, or more of like a mentor for yourself?
Yeah, that's easy. Dusty Rhodes, man, that's easy. So when I was in FCW, so my strong suit was always that I could talk. I was really, 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 really good on the mic, very comfortable on the mic, and I remember when I first got to FCW, they were doing house shows on Tuesday nights at a bar in Newport Richey, Florida called, I can't remember. It'll come back to me. But so it's funny to start off my wrestling career in a bar on Tuesday nights to get a contract with WWE to go back to wrestling in a bar on Tuesday nights. It was hilarious, actually. It was, like the irony, right?
Full circle there.
100% full circle. And I remember I was sitting, this is after WrestleMania. This is after, I think that was 20, whatever one it was with Big Show and Floyd Mayweather. And that was my first week on the job, was main event WrestleMania. First week on the job, literally. And I come back and all of the talents, like 70 FCW talent, they're all looking at me like, who is this guy? And I'm like, okay, all right. So I see what this is. I'm very friendly to everyone, whatever, and humble and just, I knew that's what I had to do. And I remember we went to whatever that bar was called. I can't remember it. It'll come back to me. I'm sitting next to Steve Kern, and I'm watching, what was her name what was her name? She was one of the divas, black girl, tall, really, really thin, really pretty. What was her name?
Shoot. It was
back
Alicia
in
Fox.
Yeah.
Huh?
Alicia Fox.
Alicia Fox. That's exactly who it was. I'm about to say her name was kind of patterned after an actress, and I'm like, who? Alicia Fox. Yep. So I'm watching her walk to the ring, and I'm seeing the heat that she was getting. And I was like, I know this heat. I've wrestled in rural towns in Ohio. I know this heat very well.
Mm.
So I nudged me and my overconfidence, I guess. I nudged Steve Kern, and I'm sure you guys know who Steve Kern is. I'm like, I could get heat in this crowd easy. And he said, oh, really? And I said, yeah, which sealed my fate because then from that point on, Steve Kern hated me the entire time. So I was there in FCW literally the entire time. So he's like, oh, yeah, really? I said, oh, yeah, I could get tons of heat with this crowd easy. I said, okay, no problem. So he pulls his phone out, starts texting. He was texting Dr. Tom Pritchard, who was running sound. And then I'm just sitting there and he goes, you're up next. I said, next as in after this match? He said, yep, you're up next. So you say can get heat? Show me. I said, oh, okay. But little did he know I had a trick up my sleeve. So here's another story. Rewind back to 07, literally a year earlier. So when I made my debut in PWU at the arena, right? My first day there, it was a seminar or something that Scorpio was doing. And I remember I got in the ring. We drove all with me and my friend Drew, Smart Mark Drew. If it wasn't for him, none of this would have happened. But we drove all the way up to Philly from Youngstown, Ohio, which is an 8-hour drive.
Wow.
Yeah. And it got to the point. So when I started working for PWU, I was making a drive once a month, sometimes twice a month, like 8 hours one way. Like it was, yeah. But it was worth it, So I go out there. There's a seminar. There's a bunch of people in the ring. So I get in the ring and, Scorpio was like, all right, show me something, whatever. So I get in there with the guy and I do a T-bone suplex. So I loved suplexes. So I did a really nice T-bone suplex and I patterned it after Taz because I loved Taz very much. And like very high arch, kind of almost like a cyber suplex almost, right? And Scorpio saw it. He was like, whoa. And he stopped me. He was like, whoa, where'd you learn that? And I'm like, well, I'm watching Taz at the risk of sounding like a mark, but whatever. I did some wrestling in high school, some little submission grappling, boxing, the whole story, blah, blah, blah. He was like, whoa, do that again. So I asked the guy if he was cool, did another suplex and said, okay. Then he goes and talks to Todd Gordon and, whatever, I guess. And then next thing you know, I'm booked on the show. And that was how I ended up having my match with Sandman. So this was, I guess, Sandman's return. I don't know how many returns he's had, but so like, hey, would you be willing to work with Sandman? I'm like, the Sandman? Absolutely. So I assumed that at this point I knew, but I'm like, oh, he's going to squash me. So but I don't care, whatever. So, and like, so, all right, well, that's what we're going to do. We're going to put you on the show, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, I got an idea. And I'm like, what's your idea? I said, well, can I just interrupt and walk out to the ring unannounced, even to the announcer, and just grab the mic and cut a heel promo, and that'll lead into Sandman's music. And then, but I'll get so much heat that when his music hits, and I'm like, you can do that? And I said, oh, yeah, I can do that. I had never done it before at this point. I said, yeah, sure. I had this big dog chain, and I remember Pitbull, Gary Wolf was there. And I walked up to him, I said, hey, I wear this dog chain. Is it cool with you if I wear it? Because I know you guys are thing. And he's like, dude, yeah. He's like, thank you for being respectful. I'm like, and that story's going to come back around later on too. But so I'm like, all right, I did the right thing, and they were like, yeah, everybody was cool, Blue Meanie, there's a bunch of ECW guys there. So I'm like, all right, cool. I remember I met Sandman the first time, and he says, hey, kid, Scorpio says you're good, kid. That's what he said. Scorpio says you're good, kid. Yeah, so we planned the match out. He basically waxed me with the, with the cane and everything, kendo stick. So I walk out and grab the mic, walk out, and people, I had my shirt off and I had this beanie on and this chain, and that was, wasn't as big as I am now, but I, had some, a little bit of a build or whatever, and I walk out and get in the ring and I look around, and everyone's like, who is this guy? So I snatched the mic from the announcer and I winked at him, and let him know it was a work, and he kind of, he backed off, and then I proceeded to cut this fantastic heel promo where I borrowed Shane Douglas's promo, the NWA ECW title promo, where he threw down the title and he goes, you can kiss my, whatever. So I did that promo there. But I made it about being from Cleveland versus Philly because I knew, and man, I got so much heat. Oh, man, I got heat. Man, when that music hit, then it was like an actual ECW show. It was crazy. And he came out and we traded some shots or whatever. And then I had a chain. It was like kind of the chain versus the stick or whatever. And then he ended up whacking me with the stick, and it was over. And then I ended up having a couple more matches, but that was what I had done. So fast forward back to sitting with Steve Kern at FCW. At first, I'm like, wait, you want me to do this now? And I thought, but I'm like, I've done this before. So I said, okay, I got an idea. I said, okay, I told him, so I've done this before. I did this with Sandman, blah, blah, blah. Run the whole story down. I said, okay, let's see what you got. Sure enough, I walk out to the ring. In between the match, the ring announcer had no idea I was coming. I grabbed the mic, snatched it from him, and he kind of pushed him out the way and proceeded to cut this fantastical heel promo. I can't remember what I said, but I was just cheap heat stuff, whatever. And boo, it was like crazy heat, right? And then I leave the ring and I go into the FCW locker room because I wasn't allowed in the locker room yet. So I go in the locker room. They told me to go in the locker room. Then I spoke a band, all these guys, Dolph Ziggler, all shaking my hands like, hey, cheap heat, man, but you got some heat. Okay, that's pretty good. It was like, everybody from Ezekiel Jackson and like Carlito, all these people were, this is who was in the locker room at the time. And I was like, all right, cool. And he's like, I see you can talk on the mic. I'm like, yeah, that's, whatever. And Dusty Rhodes heard about that promo. And then I think that was when he first kind of jumped in to be the creative director, if you will, of FCW and to help us with promo. So we started doing promo classes, and they were just with like a handful of guys who are FCW veterans who had been there since Deep South and OVW. And I was only been on for a couple months, so I just kind of just snuck in and just invited myself. And that was when I started doing promos with Alicia Fox. Like I would do kind of an Ike and Tina Turner kind of improv thing with her. And she was super cool. Like she would just go with it. And Dusty saw that. And he was like, you're pretty good. I said, yeah, he was like, no, you're really good. So he would like show me things and, try this, do this. And I would do it. I would do everything he said. He's like, you're really good. And I remember one time we were having a conversation. He's like, yo, I'm your mentor. Just want you to know that. I'm your mentor. Okay, baby? I'm your mentor. I'm like, yes, you are. Dusty Rhodes tells you he's your mentor. You say, yes, you are.
Yeah.
And from that point in FCW, my entire time in FCW, it got to a point where so Dusty would do promo classes, and he wouldn't let me do a promo until the very end. We'd go through a whole promo class, and he would make me sit and wait, and I would sit next to him. He's like, all right, now it's your turn. You go. And then I would do a promo, get a standing ovation every time. And then it just started turning into like a few other guys. Byron Saxton, who was amazing on the mic. Another guy named Abraham, he debuted as Abraham Washington. He had the talk show there where they buried him. He was amazing. Like it was a few people who were just so good. And it got to the point where I started writing promos for other FCW guys. And I remember, I don't know if you guys remember Alex Riley. He was on the second season of NXT. Miz was his pro. So he and I were roommates. He and I and Jake Hager, we were in Jet Swagger. We were all kind of like roommates at the time. And I started working. I was kind of married to Alex Riley because that was when he got signed, he had no experience. But we were kind of like mirror images. We're like the black and white version of each other, so to speak. Like, athletic, could talk, but green, but I had a little more experience. So I would work with him and kind of helped him. And he and I started working on some promos, and I realized he was really charismatic and could really talk. I'm like, yo, I said, Dusty, check this guy out real quick. So he's like, okay, cool. He gets in the ring and cuts a promo, and Dusty looks at me like, whoa. From that point on, he became like the FCW champ and all of that. Like he was the next John Cena. So people started seeing that, and literally talent would kind of be like, bro, can you help me write a promo? I'm like, absolutely, I can help you write a promo. So I'm like writing promos, coming up with characters. Brian Cage, who's in AEW right now, he and I work together like really close. Great guy, good friend of mine. Love that guy to death. And we worked together, and we came up with this superhero storyline / character. And it was, based off of Batman's origin story, where he had like a scarf or something, and his mother got attacked, and all he had left was the scarf, and he was a kid when it happens, and he wanted to, he couldn't do anything about it, so he learned how to do a bunch of wrestling moves because he did a whole lot of moves. This is before he became like the Hulk. He was a smaller guy, and he did like a bunch of moves, a bunch of spots, and that was almost kind of a criticism to a degree. But I would tell him, I'm like, bro, let's make the best of this. And you could say that you do a lot of moves because you see yourself like a superhero, so to speak. So we came up with this character, and that's when the Wolverine thing was kind of born, and he would come out and do superhero stuff. And then he and I got married on the TV and the dark matches, so I would kind of heel out and whatever. And then we built it up to where I put him over on the FCW TV, and then he moved on to become him and Justin Gabriel, or what was his name on TV? Yeah, Justin Gabriel. At the time, I don't know what his name was at the time, but they became the FCW tag champs, and it, got them a good push. So like I was helping guys elevate at the time, but yeah, that was so Dusty Rhodes definitely. He was the first person that I really, really linked up with, and it helped me out a lot. Helped me out a whole lot.
I feel like not a lot of people get to say that, like as far as like like who helped you out and everything, like Dusty. Like
Yeah.
wait, what? Like you hear people have those interactions with him, but to like get a chance to like be that side by side with him and see, to be able to pick the creative mind and stuff like that too. That's awesome.
It was such a pleasure, man. Such a pleasure. Like I just every morning when I come to FCW, I couldn't wait to see him. And I remember I'd always salute him. I would always when I would see him across, I would just always salute him, and he would always like laugh and salute me back. But I was doing that out of respect, But like I would always come up and give him a big hug. Like everyone hugged him, man. He was just he was so lovable. He was such a fun person, And I understand that throughout history, people have different experiences with people, and people change. People may have been something differently in their heyday, but they're older and they're different. I get it, I totally get it, But the Dusty Rhodes that I knew, man. I mean, I almost nothing I wouldn't give to have one more day with him, man. Like it was amazing. And Dustin is just like him, man. Dustin Rhodes. I met Cody a few times when I was there. This is before Cody became what he is now. But Dustin Rhodes, man, he was very giving, very generous, man. He's such a cool dude. I'd love to see him again. He was such a great dude. It was an honor to be able to share a locker room with him, man.
Oh yeah,
that's pretty cool.
That is amazing. That is absolutely amazing. Well, I had a question and I get lost in the story.
I'm sorry.
No, it's good. That's absolutely fantastic.
I'm just sitting here like, listening to everything. I'm like,
yeah. So you're transitioning. So you're leaving wrestling. What's life like now? Like, what's your big passion now?
Music. So I have always been a recording artist for like, I don't know, since '97. A year that starts with a 1.
Wow. So yeah,
it's funny. Like, you tell anybody now, they're like, wait, since the 1900s? I'm like, easy. But yeah, since '97. And I had a recording contract, my first recording contract in 2001. So my whole life, I wanted to be, professional football player or boxer or rapper or wrestler, one of the 4. And so I accomplished 2 of them, I guess. And so basically, right now I am focused on music. I'm signed to 2 Christian hip hop labels. One is called God Over Money, and one is called Menace Movement. And I released my debut album a year ago, this week actually, November 17th last year. It's called The War of Art. Is the name of the album, and it actually debuted 13 on the iTunes Top 100 and Top 40 hip hop charts.
Didn't you have a video on TikTok as well? Because not trying to. Because didn't you have a video on TikTok as well? That it was like a.
Oh, a few videos, yeah. Oh
yeah. I was about to say because I did say I was like, wait a minute, I see those. Yeah. Whoa.
Yeah, no, it was cool, man. Like it was such a nice redemption, man. Because the way things happened and ended at WWE, but to see my name on the charts next to Drake and Kendrick Lamar and this, it was cool. It was really, really cool. It didn't stay there very long, but
hey, it was there.
It was there. That's the important part. It was there. Even if it was there for 5 minutes, it was there. You can see
it was there. Yeah.
Screenshot. Yeah, right there.
Oh man, I took plenty. Trust me. I took plenty.
I mean, you had to.
Yeah.
So, music career, signed to a Christian label, and it's beautiful that when people like find God like that, it's absolutely amazing. There's also a book.
Yeah. So I released a book called Manic on Fire in January of this year.
Okay.
Yeah. So the book, man, it was a lifelong dream, man. I got to thank Eric Lehman. Eric Lehman, man, I got to thank him, man. We've gone back and forth about this, but I would say he's my manager.
Oh, okay.
I would say he is. I guess I don't know. We
Shout out
haven't
to
really
Eric Lehman.
decided that, but yeah, he's an amazing dude, man. Eric and I connected like in 2000. I want to say 18 or something. 18 on Instagram, and with his company Prolific Management, and one of his companies, but Prolific Management, and we had just kind of talked, back and forth in the DMs, and he was saying that he was a fan, and I thought, oh, cool, but we didn't connect as far as working wise then, but we just kind of we had conversation, and everything. And fast forward 2021, I'm talking with the A&R of the label. His name is Dayton, that I'm signed with, and he was like, "Hey, I got somebody that wants to connect with you about a documentary." I said, "Oh, okay, cool." So yeah, his name is Eric Lehman. I'm like, Prolific Management. I'm like, wait, that sounds familiar. And I go look it up. I'm like, I know this guy. So we connect, and he's like, "Yeah, like you remember?" I'm like, "Yeah, I remember talking to you." We just, man, it was like no time had passed, and so we got to work. The documentary never actually happened, but he worked. He tried. He worked so hard, and it was another production company, and so we just started working together and everything, and then that led to a few opportunities. One was a movie. I was a part of a movie called Texas Twister that released, I think, in January, and that's available on Amazon, I believe, Voodoo, Tubi, I think another place as well. And he also was responsible for making the book happen. So shout out to Eric Lehman, Prolific Management. But yeah.
And the book's about like it's a lifelong journey, or is it
So,
like can you tell us a little bit about it?
Yeah, absolutely. So the book is kind of it's about my life, and it's kind of framed around mental health. So my struggle and my fight with my mental health. So it speaks a lot to depression, things like that, and fighting against it. So I tell a lot of deeply personal stories about things that I've experienced. And it's not just wrestling. This is actually before wrestling. And the wrestling part of it is only like the last couple chapters of it. But I speak about music. I speak about a lot of the different things that I have experienced. I mean, it's funny because when I tell people, I have hundreds of stories, like crazy stories. And I've always gotten told, you should write a book. And I always said, that's a dream one day to write a book. And I remember I was sitting with Eric in his kitchen. I was talking to his wife, and she's an author, and she was telling me about a book she read. I'm like, oh man, I want to write a book so bad. Like, that's so cool. And he was like, you really want to? I'm like, yeah. So I can talk to a publisher. I'm like, we can make that happen if you really want to. I'm like, we can. Sure enough, fast forward 2 years later, book is out. Yeah, it's just fighting against mental health. A lot of my experiences, in dealing with depression, dealing with overcoming adversity, and just sharing things. It's like a testimony, just sharing things that I've experienced, that I've gone through, and I hope that if somebody reads it, then they can be motivated by it, they can be inspired by it, and yeah.
And it's hard to put yourself out there like that too. Like when they see you, they're like, "Oh, here's big monster Michael Tarver. He's this big dude. Nothing in the world can hurt him." It's like, no, he's got a heart. He's human, just like the rest of it, kind of thing. So I think that like humbles some people and that too, to be able to read like, "Hey, this guy went through some stuff." Like, yeah.
What's crazy is that when when I entered WWE, it was controversial, but then when I left, it was more controversial because that was when the whole John Cena thing came out, and then the kid that made up the story on the front end came back on the back end and started his tour, and I'm getting people from all over the corners of the internet just sending me messages, attacking me, making videos, and who just wanted to believe that I was this bad guy that hurt this handicapped kid who was in the ring, and I didn't actually do it. But they don't know the truth about what actually happened between he and I. And I'm getting called everything from a bully, and videos posted saying I almost killed this kid. Literally, that's the title, and him doing interviews and all of that, telling people that I almost killed him and I was careless. And I'm like, you're not telling people that we spoke, we talked, and I checked with you to make sure you were okay, because I saw you got hurt and I saw who hurt you. And for the last 20 years, I've never said his name because he's a good friend of mine and he now wrestles for WWE. So I'm never saying his name. And I just kind of took the bullet, so to speak. And, about the going away speech, like I had him come out and gave him a standing ovation during my going away speech, for an accomplishment that had nothing to do with him. He doesn't tell people that stuff, and the whole John Cena thing. And then my career just went like no one after that. I got blackballed. No one would touch me. No one would book me. And it was tough I was getting divorced at the exact same time in 2011. And I got suicidal. Like, I almost jumped off a bridge. Like, it was just, it was crazy, man. But I put it all in the book because I figured one of the things I learned is that when you go through hell and you survive it, it wasn't just meant for you. It was meant to share, because there could be someone else going through hell that needs motivation to come out of it as well. Those things are more valuable than money and more precious than gold to me.
That's a tough story to tell. That's a tough one to tell. So I can imagine, kudos to you for, a lot of guys, a lot of people, we always talk about, like men's mental health and everything too. It's never,
it's never talked about enough.
Not talked about enough, and that too. It's out there. It's, but knowing that you have, especially when it's like, oh, he's part of this and he's part of WWE and he's in football. He's got to have plenty of people to talk to. Sometimes there's people, like, the second you have a problem, they go away and they don't want to hear about your problems, kind of thing. Yep, they see you later. Sorry, I don't want to hear about your problems. And it's like, those are the people that you need, So, like, it's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough because people, especially back home, I'm from some kind of a small town. I grew up in a small town in Ohio, and people think because I was on TV that I'm rich and famous. And I was infamous for a couple of years, but I wasn't famous, and I certainly wasn't rich. And, they don't, understand that when you get a divorce, it takes all of your money, especially if you're the husband. All your money goes away.
But even when you like, people are like, oh, you made the WWE, you paid a lot of money in that too. It's like, you still had to keep working. You had to still keep the hustle was still there. It's not like you got there and they were like, all right, made it. I could sit back and just reap the. It's like, no, you had to still keep trying and trying and going and going and going and
100%. Oh yeah, people don't. I mean, I guess people get paid. The talent gets paid a lot more now, but when I was there, we didn't get paid as much. People thought we didn't get paid that much. Like, I remember my developmental contract was $500 a week, and this was in 08.
You still had to pay for, like, your own insurance and all that stuff and everything too.
So no, they had insurance.
Oh, okay.
But you got punished for using it though. So, like, it was one of those things where, so they had insurance. We were covered. Yeah, but it wasn't like, it was only incidental insurance. Like, you can only use it if it was something that happened in the ring. But even still, if you used it, it came with some heat. Like, it wasn't a good look. And even on top of that, like, getting hurt was a really bad idea. Just never get hurt, which is why I worked with a torn rotator cuff, never got surgery, and a torn labrum, same shoulder, never got surgery. I'm embarrassed to tell you how many concussions I got when I was there. And I mean, I only sold one of them. Yeah, one of them. Only sold one of them. But I mean, I had no choice because I passed out. My last match I was working with Xavier Woods, literally my last ever match after I'd come back from TV, and I got a concussion early in the match with Xavier Woods. It's on YouTube. And I remember I blacked out 3 times. The first time I blacked out, he was doing his rolling lariat. He would roll and pop up to his lariat. And I took like a really snappy snap bump for him because he just half my size. So I wanted to kind of meet him as he was coming down and not make him look awkward. And I was always really good with taking really snappy, aggressive bumps. It was one of the things that Norman Smiley worked with me on. Is like, if you're not going to, if anything, be really good at selling, like sell really well for who you're working with, make everything they do look like it's the end of the world. And so that was my mentality, is I wanted to sell well for everyone. And on this one, I didn't tuck enough, and bang. And I remember, like, when I watched the match, every time, like, I stood up and I was like, and the next spot was I think it was a Hurricane Rana, and he jumped up and I grabbed him and we both fell. And I was kind of like out on my feet, and he's like, do it again, do it again. And so I came on my feet, stood up, sent him off the ropes, hooked him, took it, and, and then went forward in the match. And then there was like one other one where I ended up outside the ring and I was like blacked out. And then that ended up took a backdrop onto the stairs, the steel stairs, whatever. And at the end of the match, I took a spike DDT. He was doing a spike DDT at the time, and he went for it, and I had him up, and I blacked out, and we both kind of fell, which was really dangerous. And then I kind of like came to, picked him up, autopilot. You picked him up again, bounced him off the ropes, and then he snapped it, and I took a spike bump, out cold. And I woke up being carried into the locker room. What I didn't know is that I was unconscious for 15 minutes in the ring, but I was making jokes about college football while I was unconscious. I was asleep. I didn't, I blacked out, and I woke up being carried to the ring, and I was being told, yeah, you were making jokes about college football. I was like, wait, what? And I go into the locker room, and I'm like confused, and I'm trying to like stand up, and I couldn't stand up. Then I started crying. I couldn't stop crying. It was like, and they're like, you have to go to the hospital right now. And I had just bought a new car. I remember my second ex-wife was there, and she was terrified. I was like, I didn't want to leave my car in the parking lot. We had a condo like right down the street, around the corner, and I begged her to let me drive the car, just follow me, and she shouldn't have, but she did. And I was fine driving until I got into an intersection. I blacked out in an intersection and ran a red light. And I came to like in the intersection, like, oh, and like sped up, got home, and we got locked in the condo, whatever. And I'm like teaching her wrestling moves. Yeah, yeah.
Oh yeah, you go.
I was gone.
You go.
Yeah.
You need to do this lock up. Like no.
Yeah. I was. Yeah,
right?
she was like crying the whole time. And I'm like, what's wrong? And I'm trying to teach her wrestling move. I was. Ooh. And that was it. And I got just a month after that, I got released.
Wow. Jeez.
Yeah. Crazy.
What are some words of wisdom that you have for people coming into anywhere from the music industry to with independent wrestling, just in life and that too? What are some words of wisdom you can give to those people?
You have to be obsessive and stubborn about whatever it is that you want to do to get close to accomplishing it. So like if it's something that you just want to do, that's great. But if it's something that you have to do, that's how you'll get there. And I knew that I wanted to write a book. I just decided I wanted to wrestle for WWE. I saw my friends start to get booked as extras. I'm like, all right, how do I do this? How do I make this happen? And it happened. And so you have to just be obsessive about what it is that your goals. It can't be something you want to do. It has to be something you have to do. And no matter what it is, there's no such thing as a goal or a dream is too big. If it doesn't, the cliche, if it doesn't scare you, if it doesn't scare you, it's not big enough.
No, I like it. So
well, we have we're coming to an end.
No. We need more time. We're gonna start right now. Keep going.
Yeah, it was. I just like sitting back, listening to people talk. It's great. I love it. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast with us.
Appreciate it. Thank you for having me.
And remember, if you haven't got your tickets yet for these upcoming shows this weekend, remember Black Friday, November 29th in Eagles Hall. Saturday.
There's a guy up in the top left-hand corner of that poster that we know.
Yeah.
He looks familiar.
And then Saturday in Bonnie B. Grind's gym in York. And then Sunday in Lewistown at Mr. Stacks. Come out and support independent wrestling. And yeah.
Will you have your books available at these shows?
I will. Yeah, I'll have some books there. Yeah.
Awesome.
Absolutely.
Awesome. So
there you go.
Definitely pick up your copies of the book and that too. It sounds like a very, very good read. So I'll have to grab myself one myself. So
appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Learn how to read.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Have somebody read it to you.
You're reading it to me? I appreciate it.
We're getting block letters for you. So
Let's
go. We're not doing pop-ups anymore. You've graduated. So we're using actual words. Dr. Seuss is enough. So we're good.
We're good.
Thank you again, and I will see you this weekend.
Yes, sir. Thank you guys so much. I appreciate
you. All right, guys. Later.